Good evening. Whoa. It's 7 o'clock, and we have 3 meetings. The first is a special meeting of the Cunningham Town Board, which will be followed by a public hearing on municipal electric aggregation, and then we will have the Committee of the Whole, chaired by Eric Jacobson. So I'd like to call the meeting of the Cunningham Town Board to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Bowersox, Mr. Jacobson,
Yes, here.
Mr. Lewis,
Here.
Miss Marlin,
Here.
Mr. Roberts,
Here.
Mr. Smythe,
Here.
Miss Stevenson,
Present.
Mayor Pressing.
Here. The first item, petitions and communications. I have one person who would like to address the town board who's filled out a form, Carol McCusick. If anyone else would like to speak, please fill out a form. Thank you. Carol, your name and address?
Carol McCusick, 403 West University. I have a couple things to say, but I'd like it if there was an explanation of what the purview is of the town board versus the city council. Like, for example, like what's appropriate to comment on before the township board versus city council. But one thing I'm sure is appropriate is that, okay, you're going to approve an agenda, but the draft agenda is not at the township board's website. So I guess you guys have it, but the public doesn't have it. And I'm not sure if that's a violation of the Open Meetings Act off the top of my head. I just think it's not a good idea. The other, I think I'll just squeeze in and remembering that I have a question about what's the purview of the town board. There's a piece of land, you know, on Griggs and the municipal lot, where Central Avenue curves around into the municipal lot. And when they were doing street work on McCullough, they were digging out the brick street. I noticed that these construction nuts, if you ask me, were dumping concrete slurry and like cleaning out their mixers and stuff onto that land. And you know, if I called about it, and then they tooled back and forth across it with heavy machinery, right? But it turned out, Libby checked with Joe Miller at Public Works. It turned out that it was city land, and I had that impression from somebody who I thought would know, a neighbor in that area, that it belonged to a private hardware store down in somebody down in Savoy. So when did the city acquisition of that land happen, if I may ask? Let's squeeze that in under Cunningham Town Board. So what's the purview of the Cunningham Town Board and about that piece of property?
Well, the township does welfare and property assessment. Carol, would you like to explain what the duties of the township are? Carol Elliott, our township supervisor. Fred Grosser, attorney for the Cunningham Township.
The township has 2 essential functions. One is financial assistance to poor people. It's on a very quick basis. Intended not to be long-term, but it doesn't always work out that way. It's called general assistance. And assessment of real property within the township for tax purposes. Anything beyond that, the township would not be involved in. The township has no ownership interest in any property, any real property, other than its building on Green Street. So there is no property you might be interested in that would be property of the township. It could be property of the city. I wouldn't know without looking it up.
So, but almost anything that would relate to the paying of property taxes, and the money from property taxes doesn't go to the city budget. It goes just to the things that you do out of the township office.
The township's function, as far as property tax is concerned, is only determining the value of the property.
Thank you.
Okay. Eric Jacobson.
Carol, point of fact, the agenda is on the web, and if you, the way that I went to it was I Googled Cunningham Township Board, and it popped, the link to it popped right up.
You're saying the questions and that are on the agenda for April 10th are on the web?
Oh, no, not those, but the agenda for this evening's meeting.
Yes, well, that's in the back of the room too, but what people in the public would want to think about along with you
Mm-hmm.
is what you're going to vote on. You're going to vote on the approval of the agenda for the annual town meeting to be
Right.
held April 10th, right?
Right, and those are items that have been submitted by petition from the
General
public.
populace.
So when the public want to know those,
The public actually generates the agenda.
the rest of the public, I guess.
Well, anybody in the public could, by petition, put items on the agenda for the township board. That's the way that works.
I guess, well, yeah, for example, I'm talking back, okay.
Okay, Mike Weissman.
Could I comment just?
Sure, go ahead.
I just want to point out that the township itself does not have a website. The city posts certain financial information and other meeting information on their website as a courtesy. So just keep in mind that the township itself does not run a public website.
Hi. This is, I suppose, a peculiar township item, but...
Would you please state your name and address for
Mike
the record?
Weissman, 706 West Nevada, Urbana,
Thank you.
as many of you know. It's motivated by, this is about the petition about free speech in malls and parking lots. It's motivated by actual experiences, not by some abstract thought. That is, when something comes up, like, for example, the start of the war in Iraq, and you want to communicate with the public, and you don't have lots of money to put 30-second spots on the television, the natural way to communicate with people is by leafleting. And that allows citizens groups with modest amounts of money and some ideas and some time to communicate full thoughts rather than little sound bites or three-word signs to people and start actual political conversations. It's very difficult because most people are in cars in most public spaces. So the large places, especially in Champaign, Urbana is sort of not as big a problem as Champaign, but the large places where a lot of medium information voters that you would like to reach are available are malls and parking lots of the big box stores. And it's very hard to reach them because those are, given the modern construction of those things, those are private property, though it didn't used to be. So the idea is to see if we can do by legislation what has been done by court decision in California for the last 30 years or so, which is to make those highly regulated free speech areas. Those things that are in effect public spaces, but under private ownership. Under the California Constitution have been held to be open to political speech with significant regulations to make sure that it doesn't interfere with commerce. And I haven't attempted to write legislation here, but in proposing a ballot item urging there's another one in Champaign Township, urging the townships to set up a California-style regulated free speech in the main areas where you can actually reach the public. I'd be happy to answer any questions about that.
Diane?
I'm glad you're here.
Hi, Dan.
Were you one of the petitioners?
I
then?
was one of the petitioners, yes.
Okay, and I'm fine with the process here, but my problem with number 9 was that I really didn't understand what you meant by privately owned public spaces,
Well,
and it seemed a little bit out of context, and I was very concerned about the wording on this question, and if you're expecting people to vote on it. I asked 3 different people, and no one knew what it meant. So,
Well, I suppose we should specify only malls and parking lots. I can't think of any other significant case. So in other words, it would not involve changing regulations for people going into apartment buildings or something like that.
okay, so just
So-
adding those clarifying words would make a huge
To make
difference.
sure,
in
in
that.
fact, it would be
You
a
cannot
very
change
friendly
it now?
amendment to make it,
Okay. Okay, I'm just told you can't change it now. Okay.
cannot change it at all.
Well, it could be changed at the town meeting.
At the town meeting. Okay, at the town meeting, I'll make sure that it says only, or whoever makes sure, I don't know how it's run, only malls and parking lots. That's all it's intended to
Well,
be.
that would be very
That's-
helpful for
that's
people
where there's high
considering
traffic,
this.
and that's where it really is a public space, although it's privately owned, rather than
Okay, 'cause
intruding on someone's private space.
There is absolute freedom on public streets.
That is true, but it would be nice if everybody walked, but it's particularly in Champaign, which I know is not decided here, but we could set an example for them. People don't walk. They drive into the parking lot at the mall, and you can see them, but they're out of reach if you're standing out. And if you try to stop the cars on the way in, or not try to stop them, if you offer them
I
something,
would not
that's-
advise that.
yeah, I wouldn't, it's not a good idea.
Okay, Eric?
So it does seem to me that what you're proposing is sort of in the spirit of, in an earlier generation, civil rights laws that referred to public accommodations.
Yeah.
That is a privately owned space, but that is to be accessible to, everybody in the public. So I think that's a fairly, readily understandable concept.
As I say, it's essentially trying to duplicate by ordinance what's been done by court in California. So it's not uncertain whether it's workable.
Dennis?
And the only other clarification, I had a big concern about what public space you meant because it wasn't specified. And the word "such" is very ambiguous. So
Yes,
I
that
didn't know
should be
it-
modified.
I guess my question is your concept about leafleting in a parking lot. Are you envisioning the right to leaflet cars that are parked, or
No.
are you?
No, that's borders on littering. I mean, making eye contact, handing someone a piece of paper.
So you would
if they
approach
accept it.
people as they go to their car.
Exactly. Not sticking piece of paper around.
Any other questions for Mike?
But I should say, ultimately, if this succeeds, it'll be legislation, and all the details of the legislation would be decided by you guys. So things like that are beyond the details of this proposal.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to address the town board? Okay, the item is approval of the agenda for the annual town meeting to be held Tuesday, April 10th, 2012. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as shown.
Okay, a motion by Dennis Roberts, seconded by Charlie Smythe. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.